Well, that sign doesn't apply today because it's Christmas time. Christmas time is time to help the needy. I got a friend needing a hog trap. That's a definite need. And so let's get in here and see if we can't bring him some comfort and good cheer. And who knows, maybe I'll get some pork chops and tenderloin out of the deal. All right, let's get started on that Smoky Mountain hog trap. Now we're going to do a bit of lathe work in making these pulley systems here. We got a garage door spring and a garage door. That's what's going to shut it. And in making this, since I only need a quarter really, I can just make one pulley and cut it in half. That's going to cut my time down in half. Well, let me stress, if you take 2 minutes to do a 1 minute job, that's the same as taking 2 weeks to do a 1 week job, or it's the same as taking 2 years to do 1 year. Well, it starts adding up. There's a lot of truth in that. A good example is this pulley here. I want to drill me a couple of 1/2 inch holes through there so I can put a bolt so I can hold it. It's only 3/8 wide, and then I can easily turn it. I'll turn about an inch off of it, and then I'll put me a groove for my pulley. I could go to a lot of trouble trying to lay this up. It's not necessary. I'm going to put it in a 4-jaw chuck. Let me show you how you do it. So what I'm going to do, I'll mark that center, and to get it properly, you turn it over these exactly 180 degrees. Do it again. Now you're going to go in the middle of that. But I want to be 1/2 inch away from that. So I move my height gauge up a 1/2 inch. And then I'll mark it again. Doesn't have to be perfect. Like I said, I'm going to put it in the 4-jaw chuck. Boom. Boom. Now I've got very close where I need to be, 1/2 inch out here, 1/2 inch out there. Let me say a little something about a high-speed drill. Still one of the most effective cutting tools. You have a cutting speed. Normally for high-speed steel, it's about 60 feet per minute in steel. To get that proper speed, you've got a little formula called 4 times the cutting speed divided the diameter. And that does work. You just insert the cutting speed, which is about 60 if it's aluminum, much faster. But a good rule of thumb on your high-speed drills, if you remember this is a 1/2 inch. You run it about 500 RPMs or a little less. That's pretty easy to remember, 0.5, 500. Therefore, a 1/4 inch bit, you can run it 1,000. Maybe a higher, less, 850, something like that. A 1 inch bit, yeah, you got it, about 250. If you'll remember that, you'll not burn your bits up. You try to run that bit right there about 1,500, and you're going to smoke it, even with oil on it. Let me say one other thing. I bought this. This is called a split point. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it takes 70% of the energy used to drill to push that web through that plate. Therefore, when you have a split point that is so small, you can use this 1/2 inch and drill almost as easy as you would with, say, a 1/4 inch standard bit. So I highly recommend these. Plus, if it's not very important, you do not need a center drill because that small web, it will center itself. Let's do it. Throw a little bit out on there, and she'll walk right through it if I don't hit my camera. You just stop long enough to break that chip. You get ready to go through. It's a good, at least at that point, put you a little bit more on the oil on there because it's going to be thin. You'll not be able to carry that heat off, and you will burn your bed up. Drill 2 1/2 inch holes, and I've taken a couple of pieces of steel here to hold it. I can easily hold this now in my 4-jaw chuck and do all of the work at one time. Let me say a few things here about turning something like this. As you can see, I've marked that part there. This is not critical, but I want to take off about 3/4 of an inch. But even if I'm doing a critical turn, I'll mark that till I'll know where to stop before I get there because I don't want to scrap my part. Another thing, on your lathe, you always want to keep things as close and tight as you can. Therefore, on your overhang here on your compound, always keep that as close as you can, especially if it's a heavy cut. One other thing, down here, I've added this stop. I'm a believer on a stop on a lathe. That's just another thing, especially if you've got a shear key, if it's steel. I like to change them out and put one that's brass because you don't want to wreck your carriage. This one was in bad shape when I got it. Had to do quite a bit of work, but now it is good. I'm going to demonstrate here when I quickly turn something that's not really that critical. I don't like to sit here and look and try to get exactly 10 thousandths. I like to just kind of get the feel in my hands where I can turn it and knock it off there quite quickly. Let me demonstrate. You can see I'm taking a fast speed and a shallow cut, and I'm breaking the chip. Let me share a little bit with you about fixturing and how important and how it helps speed up the project. As you'll see here, I've got a stop set. I'm making this part. There's only 4 of them. It's for the hinge, but I'll be drilling it first with a pilot, and then I will open it up to my finished size. And you always want to do that because you'll get a much more accurate. If you want a good hole, always go with something just slightly smaller than that. Being a split point, it's going to be self-centered. You do a good job. I'd also like to point out the fact, put your part in the middle of your vise because your vise will flex and it's going to hold better. Always be as centered if you can. Right down here is, I've got a little piece of bent sheet metal, and that's holding my parallels in place. So therefore, when I change it, see, they're not going to go anywhere. I can easily blow that out with an airline. And I'm ready for the next part. All right, remember, watch that bit speed because you don't want to burn it up. It gets hot when it comes through there. And I'll go through and do the same thing with my 5/8, which is the hinge size. Getting ready to weld our hinges on our gate here. And I always take a little bit extra time. You can see here I've got a rod that's the same thickness as this edge right here. So that way, and I've got me something for a spacer. When I hold it up, now it's ready to tack, and it's going to be very straight both ways. I always spot it, make sure it's right, and then that way, if you've messed up, it's easy to take it back off, and you're ready to weld.
Now that the trapdoor is finished, it just needs to be set up in a field with some 5 feet high steel hog fencing and with a string run from the tripping mechanism through eyelets just above the ground. Stay tuned for part 2 of this project to see if we can catch any hogs.
You know, about 1950, a man by the name of Charles Schulz started a comic strip by the name of Peanuts. Now, most of us that grew up during that time frame, we have some fond memories of some of those characters. Lucy and Linus, Charlie Brown, Pigpen, Snoopy the dog. I guess it was because we could relate sometimes to those characters. But I think it was around 1965 that Schulz wrote a Christmas story. The name was A Charlie Brown Christmas. In essence, it focused on the true meaning of Christmas. Well, the producers were a little leery of airing it because it was a time of moral change, the Vietnam War, just a lot of unrest. They didn't think it would be very successful. But they went ahead and they took a chance. They aired it. Well, the commercial success has been legendary. You might say, well, how can that be? You see, though, man's basic needs have not changed. In the 2,000 years since Christ came, just as it was in the days of Christ, it is now. Wise men still seek him. Selah, you think about that.